Welcome to the Fix Your Sciatica podcast, where we meet with experts and clients and discuss how to manage your sciatica and low back pain without the use of medications or surgery. I'm your host, Dr. Ashley Mack, and I'm a physical therapist as well as the founder of ifixyoursciatica.com, a go-to resource for pain management. As I've spent the past couple years working with people dealing with sciatica pain and seeing the challenges that clients face when trying to navigate the healthcare system and also even just managing their pharmaceuticals, I've become more in tune and aware about the importance of the use of plant-based medicines. And it's an entirely different world out there, and it's so new to me. So I thought that today I actually am going to have Angela Ardolino, a professional who's all about plant-based medicine and is trained working with humans. She also has a podcast all about using these medications and these supplements for dogs as well. And I myself am a dog lover, and I know that many of you listeners also have dogs of your own. So Angela, thank you so much for your time and being on today's episode.
You bet. Thanks for having me.
Absolute pleasure is all mine. And so tell us a little bit more about yourself, your journey, and how you ended up to being where you're at today.
You bet. So in 2015, I was diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis. And I was already living a pretty natural, holistic lifestyle. And I was prescribed Humira, which has already been linked to lymphoma. And that didn't interest me. So I started to look for the natural alternative, like I always do for everything in my life, and was introduced to cannabis. So I tried it and could not believe how it relieved my pain. It also improved my stress and anxiety levels. It saved my life, and it changed my life so much that I needed to know more. I wanted to know, A, how was it working? And B, why is this so hard to get? And at the time, this is 2015, I had to go to California to get it. And not only did I, as I learned, I'd come back with, I can say it's now suitcases, or their pets had cancer or severe pain, you name it. So I'm a lot happier now that I live in a legal state. But that's when I discovered the medicine myself, and I quickly became an advocate. And I live in Florida, and at the time it was not legal. And I actually I was in a whole different business. I was in a publication business. I had a resource for families living naturally and holistically. So in a magazine, a very popular magazine. So I immediately went out and became an advocate and got involved with a group called Cannabis, who were literally treating their kids' cancer, seizures, everything you can imagine disease-wise with cannabis. So I just started reporting on their stories and then traveling the country and learning more. And then I'm like, this is ridiculous. It is inhumane to keep this medicine from us and our pets. So I sold my business and threw myself into the cannabis industry, having no idea where I'd end up, and learning everything, from growing it to sourcing seeds to how it worked. And I became such a big advocate. I got invited from the University of Vermont School of Medicine to attend their inaugural class in the study of cannabis's biology and therapeutic uses. And that's where I learned everything, and where I learned animals had the same system as we do, called the endocannabinoid system. And that's where I knew I wanted to focus on animals, because I have a rescue farm where I take in old senior geriatric dogs with problems and farm animals. And I also have groom shops, very, very busy groom shops, where we see, like on a Friday and Saturday, 70 dogs a day. And I was witnessing that 80% of those dogs were suffering, whether it was a skin, issue, allergies, pain, so many dogs in pain. My staff used to make fun of me because they used to call me Dog Jesus, because I literally walk through the shop and just be administering CBD to every dog I could tell was in pain. Just probably like how you can see people in pain. I can see dogs in pain.
Wow.
So when I learned that they had the endocannabinoid system also, that's when I decided to do it. The problem is when in 2016, when I went to go find a product for pets, I couldn't find one. I would find a human product that they would just slap a paw label on it. And a lot of times those products had things in it that were dangerous for our pets, like flavorings, colorings, sweeteners like xylitol will kill your dog. So I decided that I needed to formulate and create products from what I learned, how to extract it, where do those medicinal properties, compounds live? How do you keep them alive? What do you put in them what do you put it in to preserve it and make it more bioavailable? So I learned all of that. So I partnered with the biochemist and we created my line of products, which are tinctures and salves, and they're all human grade. And I take them myself for my own medicine. And what I did is I know a lot about 15 herbs. And they're called adaptogens. So I concentrate on adaptogens. And what adaptogens are a group of plants and mushrooms that have incredible medicinal properties. And literally when you take them, they get into your body and adapt to what you need, which is usually stress of some sort. And when you put more than one together, it's already been proven in research, they become much more powerful and synergistic. So it made sense to me to add other adaptogens into my tinctures. So, I get to say now 5-6 years later, I actually created them in 2016 and I couldn't launch them until 2018 when the Farm Bill, made hemp legal in all 50 states. But I was the only one, combining them. I'm now watching everyone in the industry copy me. But it does. You could take like a 500 milligram full spectrum hemp extract and compare it to one that is also 500 milligrams, but has like turmeric and frankincense in it. And you've just made it 10 times more powerful because of it, more synergistic because you put those compounds together. And what I'm learning is that adaptogens interact with the endocannabinoid system. Not exactly like cannabis does, but it interacts with it. And that's why these plants and mushrooms share some of the same compounds as cannabis does.
I love that. I think there's, as you said, over the past couple of years, there has been this shift in awareness of these amazing magical plants that grow from this earth that happen naturally, which has properties that allows us to really heighten our well-being. And in your case, when you were dealing with rheumatoid arthritis, you were managing a lot of inflammation. And I love the fact that you brought up the endocannabinoid system because it's such an important system that often gets overlooked. They don't talk about it in school. And I even know for myself, so I graduated in 2012. I had to get a couple years of practice under my belt. And then I had to actually actively search this information. And it was funny because back in 2014, I think maybe 2014, 2015, when you discovered cannabis that actually helped you, there was this meetup in Manhattan where I used to live. And it was like, it was a cannabis startup. And I was really excited because I wanted to learn more about it, but I was concerned at the time because here was the only healthcare professional. Am I just going to go into a room of a bunch of stoners, right? And that was kind of like that was the stigma. And what's really cool and coming out to California, being able to see the evolution and how people view these plant-based medicines and how it can actually help out specifically. And so we talked about the system. It's really it's not very well known, but it has a huge, profound impact. So for the listeners, can you tell us a little bit more about the endocannabinoid system and how that can actually influence just how we feel and from a wellness standpoint?
Yeah, it kind of blows my mind because it is considered the master system in our body and it is in control of all of our other systems in our body. So it's not like you can fix your endocrine system without fixing your endocannabinoid system first. What's remarkable about dogs in particular is that there's already been research that's come out that says that that has proven that they have more receptors than we do. So they have like 10 times more receptors through their central nervous system, meaning that is why they're so sensitive to the medicine. So that's why they are so great on a full spectrum hemp extract, which only has like 0.03% THC when we need more THC. So it is that, I think that's a remarkable thing. But the endocannabinoid system is responsible for everything. So if you have a deficiency, and you can have a deficiency at birth, I mean, not at birth, because you get some of your endocannabinoids from your mother's breast milk. So let's say you weren't breastfed, or the dog, wasn't breastfed, then you are literally a puppy or a baby with an endocannabinoid deficiency. The good thing is that there happens to be this plant called the cannabis plant that the system is named after, because you take these phytocannabinoids that mimic our endocannabinoids and it fills those deficiencies. So that's why it doesn't make sense to so many people, because they're like, how can it be good for all of these things? Well, first of all, its number one action is to reduce inflammation throughout your body. So all disease is, and most pain and discomfort is caused by inflammation of something. So that's why this one plant medicine can do so much, because it immediately gets rid of pain and inflammation. It also supports your immune system. So if you need to ramp up your immune system, it does that. If it needs to calm it down, it'll do that. So to me, we have a board of advisors that are mostly holistic veterinarians, and we are always asking, like, when is a good time to start? For instance, if I've got a Doberman who large breed dogs, it's like 1 in 5 large breed dogs is going to get osteosarcoma, which is a very aggressive and painful bone cancer. If I know that large breed dog is that prone to getting it, can I give it to him, start giving it to him as puppies, as a preventative? I'm thinking after 6 months, 9 months, and all my vets came back and said, give it to him right at the beginning. 1 month old, start giving it to him. That's how much they have now watched and learned and saw how this effect has on it and can literally prevent disease. I've seen it. I've put cancer in remission 4 times already at my rescue farm. Just little old me, and I'm no veterinarian. And that's funny what you said. Most doctors are not taught about this system. So when I got out of University of Vermont, and then I come to Florida and we approve medical marijuana, nobody knows how to use it. So I spend most of my time traveling and educating doctors and veterinarians about this system, which is hilarious. I never thought I'd be doing that in my life, but it's pretty incredible. And it really does make sense when you think about how many dogs, how many pets we see that a pharmaceutical drug just isn't helping. It's because it's treating the wrong thing. So a lot of times you'll find that it helps so many people that couldn't find relief from a pharmaceutical drug. And also, let me remind you, every pharmaceutical drug is derived from something found in nature that works. You can't patent and make $1 billion off something found in nature. Marijuana, cannabis, literally grows like a weed. That's why it's called weed. So they can't make billions off of that. So they take one compound out of that plant and make a synthetic version or an isolate of it. And then that's what they patent and make billions of dollars off of. So, I mean, nobody can say to me that it doesn't help or work, because not only have I done it for myself, but I've seen so many people and animals get relief from it.
We are going to take a quick break to tell you about our awesome new program called the Sciatica Protocol. If you don't have the time to see a professional, but are tired of trying to figure out this recovery on your own, then the Sciatica Protocol is for you. Harness the power of a knowledgeable physical therapist through your phone. It takes no more than 7 minutes per day, and it is designed to help you recover as quickly as possible. It is simple to start, and all you need to do is log into ifixyoursciatica.com/the-sciatica-protocol and fill out the 9-question quiz to begin. The link for the program is in today's show notes. Yeah, it's a really powerful plant and compounded system. And You brought up a very interesting point about the use of, say, plant-based medicines, adaptogens, and stuff like that department versus the pharmaceuticals. And I often see this a lot when people are dealing with sciatica pain, because when you're dealing with sciatica pain, sciatica, listeners, again, is a symptom of an irritated sciatic nerve, and that sciatic nerve irritation could be a result of a couple of different things. It could be a herniated disc, it could be arthritis, it could be something that's actually pinching, or it might be nothing of those at all, because it could also be happening from a nervous system standpoint. And just like Angela said, when you are taking pharmaceuticals, they're kind of addressing, say, like one specific problem at a time, as compared to, say, plant-based medicine, where you're able to really address multiple systems. Because if you're experiencing sciatica and you're given, say, something like a steroid, that steroid is used to reduce inflammation. Well, what if that pain that you're experiencing is actually not caused by inflammation? What if that pain was actually caused by nervous system sensitivity? And you'll have medications for that. But one of the challenges is, like, there's so many medical interactions with different between drugs and pharmaceuticals, and it's outside the scope of my practice to be able to say these are the medications that you're on. That's what a medical doctor's there for. But also being able to see, and as Angela said, the amazing properties in which you can combine adaptogens and plant-based medicines to actually have a huge impact. So we're already talking about it as is, but like when it comes to the cannabis plant, I think there's a lot of misconceptions to its use and how it actually is helpful. So what are some of the common misconceptions and myths about using something like cannabis to be able to manage or use to address stuff like pain, inflammation, stuff like that? What are some of those myths?
Yeah, I love it. Let's just talk about pain. And I love what you just said. And, you know, when I was able to send cancer into remission and be able to completely control bone cancer pain, I needed to know why. I needed to know how. And so I like what you just said, because what I think people don't understand is that there are 5 signaling pathways to pain. And what a pharmaceutical company will do is they're not going to make one drug to address those 5 signaling pathways. They make it address one signaling pathway. So a trend that a lot of our holistic veterinarians were seeing, and oh my gosh, I see all the time, and it also happens in human medicine, is where your dog, I think my dog's in pain, so they prescribe a pain med. And that pain med interacts with one of the pathways. It doesn't work. They come back in, I think he's still experiencing pain. They prescribe another one that interacts with a different pathway. That doesn't really do the trick. Next thing you know, the dog's on 5 different drugs. Same thing happens on the human side, where our elderly patients are on like 13, 14 different pharmaceutical drugs. And like you said, they have no idea what the interaction is. They're all synthetic. The kidneys and liver are working on those synthetic things in your body, meaning they're not doing what they're supposed to, which is detoxing your body and getting rid of toxins. So they're literally working nonstop on these drugs. So you've killed your body's ability to fight off, or your immune system's ability to do anything. What adaptogens do, they interact with all 5 of the pathways. Everything's natural, no side effects, nothing bad whatsoever. Same thing happens with cancer. Cancer has 12 signaling pathways. Same thing. The drugs, targeted drugs, all these drugs are targeting one pathway instead of all 12. And guess what? If you want to combine these adaptogens and plant medicines with what you're taking, go for it. It's only going to help. It's not going to hurt. You can't say that the other way around.
Yeah, that's
so yeah. I forgot what your question is. Did I answer it? I just knew I wanted to say that, because I don't think people understand that all pharmaceutical drugs are derived by something that worked in nature, and they just take it and alter it.
Yeah, I think well, one, that was great to be able to share. I mean, yeah, the multiple pathways to pain. I think what a lot of people think, that when they're in pain, that means that there's something damaged. And this is what ends up being the problem, because people will go to get their MRIs. MRIs don't say anything, and they're a ton of pain. or they're in a little bit of pain and their doctors are like, well, your back is like the worst thing I've ever seen. And all of a sudden we start to set off another alarm and another system that actually influences their pain. And then they're given medication after medication. So to be able to break that down. So if we're looking at people who are interested in investigating and say, let's talk about cannabis specifically. I think that there's a lot of stigmas and a lot of myths and a lot of misconceptions about it. So when you were communicating with your medical professionals and you were teaching them, what are some of the common themes or misconceptions that they had, and how did we dispel them?
Whew. Doctors and veterinarians are scared to death of it. They think it's a Schedule I, drug, and that they're going to lose their license. So there is a lot of them that are scared to death of it. That has changed, but I can't believe it. Every single day, I will get a message from someone that says, my vet says THC is going to kill the dog and it's toxic. You can Google it and you'll see, the same thing, but you'll also see that garlic kills them and, lavender essential oil and all that's bullshit also. But I think that's their biggest concern is legality. I find that the integrative functional doctors, those that can, like yourself, that have continued to educate themselves, that got out of school and went, I didn't learn anything about diet and nutrition or natural or anything like that. Those of you that have continued to educate yourselves, and thank you for doing that, are more open to it and more open to try it. Problem is, it's an unregulated market. So 9 times out of 10, you're going to get a product that has no CBD or no cannabinoids in it whatsoever, or it's a broad spectrum product where it's overprocessed and they try to take the THC out of it and you can't. CBD won't bind to a CB1 receptor without THC. So a broad spectrum product is not going to help you necessarily with cancer or pain. So it's very important to make sure it's a full spectrum. And, it's not regulated. So making sure that those products have a certificate of analysis proving what they have in that bottle and what's not in that bottle. Both hemp and mushrooms are both bioaccumulators. So they suck everything out of the air and earth. And they have to be grown organically and in the right conditions. Mushrooms, even worse. I can't even believe what's happening with mushrooms. Mushrooms, we already have drugs in Japan, anti-cancer drugs in Japan that are made out of PSK and PSP, which are compounds found in the turkey tail mushrooms. But most products on the market are like a rice or grain substrate that they inoculated with the spores, and the mushroom pops its head up and they take that whole thing, grind it up and put it in a capsule or in a packet. That doesn't have any medicinal properties. Nothing has been extracted. So a lot of times they're not extracting these compounds out of the flower of the hemp plant or the lavender plant, or out of the fruiting body of the mushrooms, which is where all of those good beta glucans and triterpenoids live that do kill cancer, that do. Lion's mane, regenerates neurons in our brains. It regrows our telomeres. It's amazing. I don't know anything else natural, that does that. I don't think there's anything that does that. So combine that with hemp and you really are helping an aging person or animal.
Yeah. So you bring up this very interesting concept and very important concept when it comes to regulation. And so I think from what I've read, like regulation, like the pharmaceutical industry is regulated, but also it's kind of like who has the most amount of money, right? You
Absolutely.
have a lot of money to do that, and you're having these studies funded by this. And the
same thing happens in the animal realm, but even worse. The FDA literally has a section because they can't get to it and animals don't matter. So they literally have something called not approved, but legally can market it. So you just get that and then you just put out a product. And guess what? If your product does for some reason get pulled from the FDA because of one of its ingredients, they just change it and put it right back out. So it's I agree with you. The FDA isn't something that we can trust. And the hemp industry has been begging the FDA. It's done everything that you could possibly think of to get the FDA to regulate it, because those of us who are doing it right, we don't want it to get a bad name. Imagine all the people who were scared and then went out and tried a product and it didn't do anything, or they got sick, or, whatever it is, because it wasn't a pure regulated product.
So then when it comes to regulate, I mean, without the regulation, there's going to be a lack of consistency. You're going to have companies who are actually going to end up creating these, we'll say, low quality products.
Worse. One company makes all of it and private and white labels it to anybody and everybody who wants it.
Interesting. And so going through this, right, when we spent the past say 30 minutes talking about the benefits and how adaptogens and cannabis can actually help the body heal and get well through the endocannabinoid system, and is providing like a good natural way for us to heal and get better. But how can we, and I think you talked about this, but how can we navigate that unregulated realm? How can we know that what we're putting in our bodies is actually exactly what it is, especially in a world where anyone, you have this one company that kind of white labels it and all. So what are some of those things that we need to look for that helps us understand, okay, what we're getting the real thing?
Well, those of you that live in California and Colorado and Nevada and places like that really do have a lot of amazing resources, and people, there that are experts in the realm. So find that expert or find that brand. And the first thing that you're going to do is look for that certificate of analysis. So this is one of my products. This is my formula that has the full spectrum in the turmeric and frankincense, and it has a QR code on it, and on the bottom of the bottle has a batch number carved into the bottle. So you scan this with your phone, it takes you to this product's certificate of analysis, or COA. And what that COA shows you is you want to make sure it's a full spectrum hemp product, full spectrum extract. So you're going to see the major cannabinoids, and you'll see a little blip or percentage. You want to make sure that THC is showing up on there, which usually will mean or prove that it is a full spectrum product. And then like page 2 and 3 is showing you what's not in that bottle. So we test for heavy metals, herbicides, pesticides, sometimes solvents like I said, our products are human grade. So we use supercritical CO2 extraction to extract the medicinal compounds out of the flower without damaging any of them. And then we put them right into the MCT oil to help with bioavailability and preservation of those extracts. Most don't do that. So that is probably the most important thing. Make sure it's grown under the Farm Bill. If it's grown under the Farm Bill, which I can't imagine it's not, meaning the guy that's making tinctures in his garage, a lot of times those are really good things. However, you don't know what else contaminants are in that person's thing. So buy it from someone who is under the Farm Bill, which means it's grown organic, and at least the growing part of it is regulated. It's the manufacturing, bottling, and selling part that is completely unregulated. So you have to do your homework. You're not going to find a full spectrum hemp extract on Amazon. Don't buy it on Amazon. You got to find a brand and a person, an expert. Why did they create it? Who are these people? What is it that they know? And there's even doctors and veterinarians who see that they could make big money on this and have jumped on the bandwagon. Some of them are legit and the best, and some are not. My favorite website for humans is called projectcbd.org. And it is a wealth of information. They recommend brands. And everybody, one of my favorite human doctors is, I think it's Dustin Sulak, but he's all over Project CBD. So you'll be able to find him. There's incredible people in the industry on the human side are doing good things, but most of them are out to make a lot of money. So be sure to do your homework and look for those people.
All right. Yeah. Being able to research, figure out, are they really doing what they're supposed to be doing, or is it just like a really nice sales page? I think that's especially in a world where everyone is trying to say like make a quick buck, right? It's
Right.
really easy for people to say, "Hey, check out this thing. This is going to be the coolest," but then try to take a look and say, "Okay, well, what's the track record? If I am going to be ingesting something, what is actually going into my body?" And I know that especially with heavy metals, I became even more aware about the use of heavy metals when I was starting to take a bunch of protein powders. And I went down this entire rabbit hole and realizing the protein powder that I was taking was actually filled with heavy metals. And so I had to really take a step back and make those changes. Angela, I think it's really important for people to understand that they don't necessarily they don't have to be funneled into just one specific treatment. There's so many different alternatives that are out there. And I think what's really interesting is that if you look at, say, plant-based medicine, right, it's classified under what they call alternative medicine. And
It's the other way around. This is
yeah.
the original.
Yeah, and I think it's really interesting, and especially living out here in California where you have access to a lot of really good quality products. It's exciting to see over like what the next even 2 to 3 years will look like when it comes to the access, but also hopefully the quality as this starts to grow in practice. And it's exciting to have people like you who see the value and reintroducing this to the world and how this can actually help people. Because I've definitely seen on my end how plant-based alternatives have been extremely helpful. And you'll see it even across a lot of the large medical communities, the ones on social media. They're talking about, okay, cannabis can be really helpful, mushrooms and adaptogens. And it's really exciting to see that because yeah, oftentimes people will say, I've been taking so much medication, it's not working. And then we have to figure out, okay, well, what are the next steps? And listeners out there, I want you to know that when you are dealing with this pain that you're going through, that there is hope. Don't ever stop searching for an answer. As you see, you have someone like Angela who was diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis, which is a very inflammatory disease. And she was able to change her entire life by doing the research and trying to figure it out. And just like you listeners out there listening to this episode, you are doing your research. And so don't ever be satisfied with having to say, this is just going to be what life is going to be like, because you do have the opportunity to break free from this pain cycle. You have people like Angela, who's creating amazing products. You have people like myself and all the other healthcare.
Do you think I'd ever I'm just a regular old person. I never thought I would be training doctors. So understand that doctors don't have all the answers. You need to go in. I just had this journey with my own health. You know, I went to see my holistic doctor about hormones, and she's like, okay, we're going to test them. She goes, okay, I'm going to send you, we're going to get a blood test. I go, that's not the best way to test hormones. So I knew before I went in there what I did my research and looked into, and then I'm going to take her information and go, yes, and ask questions. But it's always good to educate yourself. It's your health. It's your pet's health, your kid's health. You're the one who can keep those chemicals and toxins out of your home and body. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, it's great. I love it. Which then brings up to the big point is the fact that I encourage you all to be your own advocate.
Yeah.
Trust
your gut.
Trust your gut. If something isn't working, tell them. I recently had an interaction with a client of mine who was saying, Ashley, why are you asking me all these questions? Like, why is this so important to you? And I said, I need to ask you all these questions, get all this information in order for me to do my job correctly. I'm taking the time out of my day. Well, not just my day, but I'm taking the time within our session to be able to make sure that we are getting the best information as possible. And it might take a couple sessions, but it is important for us to be able to say, is this working? And again, you are your biggest advocate. Make sure that you are speaking up for yourself and that there are people who are there to help you. But again, we can't help you if we don't know that. If we don't know what you know, if we don't know what you're experiencing. And so, Angela, this has been a pleasure. And, we could talk all day about all this stuff because, we're huge fans and, we're on opposite coasts and we share a lot of the same values, which is really, really great. I'm sure that a lot of listeners are trying to figure out, okay, I'm thinking about maybe getting involved in plant-based, maybe even looking into the cannabis stuff. So if you're looking at, say, if there were like two big action steps that they can take to even just start on this journey, what would those two action steps be?
You mean to get into the industry or learn more about it for themselves?
As like a consumer, like a person who is like, oh, I'm considering cannabis, I'm considering plant-based medicine, but I don't know where to start. Where could they start?
Well, if you're in a legal state, one of my favorite things to do is to go to a conference. Make sure it's not a get high conference and that it's one that focuses on medical, because then you're going to be surrounded by people who've tried it, used it. You're going to listen to people speak and talk about it. It's a wonderful way to be immersed into what it is. Doesn't necessarily mean everyone at that conference is going to be selling a good product. Most conferences won't vet the products beforehand, so it's not necessarily where you want to go for that. But projectcbd.org, like I said, is my favorite. Leafly.com is also great. There's so many podcasts out there that, you literally can type in cannabis podcast and then literally look through. You could put in your literally cannabis and, Parkinson's disease and probably find a ton of subject matter. It's all out there. And once you expose yourself to it, you're going to realize that this isn't something that's going to be in the shadows, because more and more people are finding relief. They're finding a cure. They're putting cancer and all these diseases into remission themselves. There's literally a product called RSO from a Californian who was a hemp farmer who got skin cancer and literally crushed up the flower and rubbed it on his, arm and cured his skin cancer. And it's Rick Simpson oil. So, it's been going on. The other thing I love to bring up, do you know who owns the U.S. patent for cannabinoids as a neuroprotectant and antioxidants? The
Who?
United States government.
Wow.
So if that doesn't tell you everything, so it's pretty crazy to think how it's being kept. And it just makes me go every time someone contacts me or do a consultation and they go, look, my dog's taking this and it's not working. He's got this disease. I'm not a doctor, so I literally Google the disease, and the disease is the inflammation of the pancreas or the kidney or whatever it is. And I know that I'm going to be able to bring them relief because I know I'm going to at least reduce that pain and inflammation. And then God knows what else it's going to help. You can find pieces of research on everything now, because now that it's opened up, Israel, Italy are some of the leaders in the research, and it's unbelievable what they're finding. It's really awesome.
Wow. Yeah. There's so much information out there, folks. And so the first step that you can do is go to those two websites, which I'll actually put the link into the show notes for this episode. And Angela, thank you so much for your time. I know that you're busy being able to educate doctors and then have your own businesses as well. And you're also consulting with people. So for the folks who are listening, they're like, you know what, I want to hear a little bit more about Angela and what she does. What's the best way to find your information, get in touch, ask any questions?
You bet. My website, my name, angelaardolino.com. And my podcast is called Your Natural Dog, and you can find it. And you can hear you as a guest who we're going to talk about sciatica pain in dogs.
I love it. Awesome, Angela. Thank you for being part of today's episode.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for tuning in. We hope you got some help from today's podcast. And for more info, check us out at ifixyoursciatica.com. Have a fantastic and pain-free day. No patient-therapist relationship is formed by listening to this podcast. We are not providing medical advice, and all information should be confirmed by a medical provider.